We're live, so the meeting now recommences after the adjournment. Advice has been obtained. It's not clear, but it appears that the current foreshadowed motion about adjournment is, about deferment is in order. So we're now back to the foreshadowed motion, and we have had discussion about it. Does anyone wish to say any more? All those in favour of the foreshadowed motion, please raise their hand. All those against? Well, I got it on the Councillor Robinson is against the foreshadowed motion, but Councillor Arnold, Deputy Mayor Woods, and Councillor Churchill and the Mayor are in favour of the foreshadowed motion. So I declare that the foreshadow motion is carried. The matter will now end up before Council again, when we hope it will be the last time, to be dealt with in February. Now that we go on to 7.5 statement, future statement of expectations, section 24 committee. Do I have a motion? Deputy Mayor Woods.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to move that council. Sorry, I've got it written down here.
Page
That the
36.
current, yes, that the current statement of expectations committee be disbanded effective 15th of December 2020.
Do you want to do it? Is that it? Mm-hmm. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Arnold. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to open, if I may,
Please.
Mr. Mayor. The officer's recommendation, there was three parts to it, but we have a Director of Local Government and the Minister of Local Government to report to as per the performance improvement direction that we were given earlier this year. And how much, if we were to go with the 2 and 3, I'd like to know how much this would cost Council again, given that I believe that the Statement of Expectations Committee has cost ratepayers, and I'm happy to be corrected, in the order of something like $30,000 thus far. And I just think we now, they have done their job, and it is with much gratitude and thanks to both Miss Mason and Mr. Priest, but I feel that the time has come that the committee has done its job and we move on. Thank you.
Any other? Councillor Arnold.
Mayor, I'd just like to clarify something here for not only Miss Murray but also in my head as well. I was struggling with this recommendation because I could support one part of it but not the second part, and the Deputy Mayor has actually solved my dilemma by only moving the first part. So in terms of the motion, the Deputy Mayor has moved that the current Statement of Expectations Committee be disbanded effective the 15th of December 2020. That's it. That is the Deputy Mayor's motion. So it's not, okay, all right. So yes, you're quite correct, Miss Murray, that needs to go. And 2 and 3 need to go at this point.
Any other discussion? Councillor Churchill.
I guess my discussion really just comes from the point of view of a question, and I guess if I could ask the General Manager through you, Mayor, what will be since the Statement of Expectations and then subsequently the Performance Improvement Directive all came to us through the division, what will be the view of the Minister and the Director if we terminate the, or what in your opinion will be the view of the Director if we terminate the statement of expectations at this point? I mean, my instinct is that that it is the right thing to do, but if this is going to reflect badly on us in terms of the PID and the division's expectations, I think I would like some idea of how that's going to influence.
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
General Manager.
the intent is to continue with a statement of expectations committee in a different format. So reducing the number of representations on the committee as per 2 in the recommendation. And when it was discussed at the last meeting, the statement of expectations committee meeting, it was agreed that an annual meeting would be more in order than the frequency that has been occurring to date. There was discussion around complete disbandment, and the committee was uncomfortable with that, given the journey that we've been through, and felt that that would be a rather significant change as opposed to a transition. So this report is really seeking early in the new year a terms of reference for a new looking committee, with a view to eventually getting to a point where there won't be a committee, sort of transitioning out. I have spoken to the Director, but I haven't spoken to the Minister, and I'm happy to put to them in writing this position, and get their advice. We'll get their support for going this way.
Councillor Arnold?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a problem with there being a new committee. What I have a problem with is it being a Section 24 committee. If we are going to take responsibility for our own governance, as I think we should after going through this statement of expectations process, then it's time we did it without external hand guiding us. We need to stand up and take responsibility for our own governance. So why can't this new committee that the General Manager is suggesting be a Section 23 committee of council, which is only comprised of councillors?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, General Manager.
It could be. That is totally within council's authority to set up a Section 23 committee that would not include external advisors. The discussion on the day at the committee meeting was the committee felt it would be preferable to have some external oversight.
Can I speak? Is that in order? Is it not a matter for us to approach the Director General of Local Government and raise the question with him, and if we get the indication that it's going to cause trouble with the performance improvement directions, we should then perhaps consider going on with a recommendation 2 and recommendation 3, so that part of it could come back if the indications are we're going to get scolded or into trouble if we don't comply with the suggested recommendation. That's a question that I asked, a rhetorical one, not for answering perhaps.
Mr. Mayor, can I?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Can I just make a point here? We're actually talking about part 2 of a motion that doesn't actually exist at the
That's
moment.
correct.
We
Only the
really should. We
recommendation.
should deal with the disbandment of the Section 24 committee that currently exists,
That's correct.
and whether a councillor wants to move something in relation to Section 2 or 3.
Yeah, Councillor Churchill.
Well, in light of the motion and what Councillor Arnold has said and what the General Manager has said, I would like to foreshadow a motion, which is pretty much the recommendation, except we change the section 24 to section 23, and we take Ms Mason or alternative external party out of that motion.
Deputy Mayor Woods, did you wish to say something? Or did I see you raise your hand?
We'll only say something when it's time to close, if I may.
Anyone else? Would you like to say something?
Yes, the reason I have moved just part one of the recommendation is that I feel that the statement of expectation has been achieved, and it was a suggestion of the former Director of Local Government, not necessarily a directive. I don't believe that it is part of the PID or the Performance Improvement Direction, because it was started before we were issued with the Performance Improvement Direction. So I'm mindful of cost, the cost that it's cost this council and the ratepayers of this municipality to have this statement of expectations. I think it's run its course. We have a statement of expectations that we are abiding by, and it's time to, like Councillor Arnold has said, we've got to start standing on our own 2 feet and putting ourselves forward in a positive and productive way. And I don't think we need to have our hands held anymore. Thank you.
Well, all those in favour of the motion, please raise their hand.
So do you want me to read that out for you, councillors? So it's a section 23 committee?
No,
That's not it yet.
No.
The motion that we're voting on is that the current statement of expectations committee be disbanded effective 15 December 2020. And those against? Those in favour are Councillor Arnold, Deputy Mayor Woods and Mayor Young, against Councillor Robinson and Councillor Churchill. Now,
So it's carried.
I declare it carried. Councillor, am I going too quickly? Tell me to stop if I'm going too quickly. Councillor Churchill, you foreshadowed a motion.
It doesn't matter now, because the motion's done.
I wasn't. I should have accepted it, I'm sorry. It doesn't mean that we can't deal with it. At a section 23 committee, should such a motion come up before council next time?
The motion is now that it disappears. So that's it.
That's it.
Done.
Yep.
Okay.
With respect, Mayor, the council could decide to establish a governance committee under section 23 of the Local Government Act.
At a later date.
Do it in
Through you, Mr Mayor, again, the intent was early in the new year to present a new, to talk to council about the terms of reference or present a report on the revised terms of reference. So that would be the opportune time to do that.
So it's not, the last part of the recommendation is not lost forever.
Okay.
If I may, Mr Mayor,
Yes, please.
put a suggestion through to the General Manager that he writes to both Ms Mason and Mr Priest and acknowledges and thanks them for the work that they've done through the process.
Absolutely.
Whether I can do that now?
Yes, you can.
Yep.
I'd endorse that recommendation. It doesn't require a motion, I don't think. There's no dissent, is there? On item, I'm sorry,
So,
no, just waiting for,
So through you, Mr Mayor, would council be comfortable with me just contacting the director by telephone at this stage and informing him of
Yes.
this, yep.
With a bit of softening,
Yep.
not a punch on the nose.
Don't want to be
Item
awkward.
8, notices of motion, there are none. Item 9, petitions, none. Item 10, questions without notice from councillors,
Yes, please.
please. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the General Manager, I have 2 questions that directly relates to an article in the latest C-Speak regarding the end of an era for Glamorgan Spring Bay Natural Resource Management. I have a copy of the consultant's report that is a review of NRM resources. I did not see the consultant brief, so I'm unaware of whether a desktop analysis is all that was requested and paid for. There is no reference to the credentials of the consultant in the report, so it is, in my view, lacking in credibility and gives me no comfort as an elected member that the author had sufficient knowledge of NRM in Glamorgan Spring Bay to produce a report on which an organisational restructure of the size recently implemented could be undertaken. It is little more than an 8-page desktop analysis of NRM across the state that any person with a Google account could have undertaken. My question is, given the increasing community interest in the NRM restructure, which will only be heightened by the C-Speak article, what was the cost of the consultant's report, and will the brief and report be made publicly available?
I'm going to ask that that question be taken on notice and that a response be given at the next council meeting, because it's a detailed question that some thought have been given to it and it requires consideration.
Thank you, Mayor, and if I could just direct to Miss Murray, I will send you this in an email, Miss Murray, so that you
The
you
question in
have
a
it
type form.
in
Thank
a
you very
type
much,
form.
Councillor
I will
Arnold.
send it to you in an email.
Thank you.
The second
Second
part,
question.
the second part, which again will probably need to be taken on notice, Mayor, because it is quite involved. Glamorgan Spring Bay Council has received $2 million plus from NRM South alone since 2005. Other fundings received over the years from many sources range from Landcare Tasmania, directly from the Australian Government, including the current $174,000 for Drought Zone A weeds and community water grants for Bicheno and Coles Bay. The state government has provided grants for years, including the current $55,000 weeds for drought farmers and various other grants for fire management and regional climate change. Couple this with other sources of funding from Australia Post to Tidy Towns to the STCA and the numerous private works undertaken for a range of stakeholders, including government departments and private property owners. And it's estimated that up to a further $1 million in funding was brought into council for this important environmental work. During the community consultation for the strategic plan, there was strong support for celebrating, valuing and protecting the unique, precious qualities of Glamorgan Spring Bay, and this objective was included in the strategic plan as Direction 8. My further questions are, how does council
So
intend...
but can I stop you? I don't quite follow that. You haven't yet asked the question in this question. This is the question now.
This is
So-
the second question, thank you.
Thank you.
How
This
does
is the
council
question now.
intend to replace the NRM structure recently dismantled under the organisational restructure to ensure continued compliance with Strategic Direction 8, protecting the environmental values and amenity of the East Coast? And how will the level of grant funding outlined be attracted to our municipal area in the future? And more importantly, will Glamorgan Spring Bay be able to deliver any funded projects to meet obligations under our strategic plan? Now, I acknowledge that they are quite involved questions, Mr Mayor, and that the General Manager is likely to have to take them on notice, and I'm happy to do that.
Thank you very much. Will you supply a copy
I
of
will.
that question?
I will indeed.
To our minutes.
And I do have one other question which is not about NRM. It is, in fact, I'm referring to my question, and this is to the General Manager. It's in response to my question at the November meeting, you advised that a desktop analysis had been completed in Coles Bay in relation to the location of septic tanks. Information received recently by the Freycinet Association Incorporated from Council appears to indicate otherwise. Can you please confirm whether the desktop analysis has in fact been completed and what budgetary provisions will be made by council to assess poorly managed septic systems.
I'm going to raise a question about that question. It's based on information received. The information received, we don't know what it is, and it's not fair to ask someone a question based on information that he or she or we don't know. I'd like you to specify what information was received by the group at
was an-
Coles Bay that would indicate that that it wasn't a desktop analysis.
It was an email that was received from council officers that the general manager is aware was sent.
I would like to know, could you specify that email with more detail so we can identify it?
No. I don't need to, Mr
Well,
Mayor.
I'll ask that the matter be considered by the General Manager, but I imagine there would be great difficulty relying upon an email that says the desktop analysis didn't occur.
I didn't
But
say
not
that.
specific. Well, you
Mr.
said
Mayor, I
based on
didn't say
information
that.
received.
I
You
didn't
said-
say
You
that.
said based on information received. And we don't know what information was received. Well, I'm quite happy to, we'll accept the question. I'm not going to refuse to accept the question if you give it to Ms Murray, but it'll be a difficult question to properly answer. Are there any other questions? Now, I think that is the end of the normal meeting, and I ask for a motion that this meeting be closed. Mr Churchill, Councillor Churchill.
I recommend that I move the council moves into closed session at 3:52.
Is there a seconder? Thank Councillor Robinson. All those in favour? Not declared carried unanimously. Could you please turn off the YouTube?